Hello, Flimsy Lunch Tray here with another recommended build video. This time we're going to be talking about the Tier 9 Premium US Navy battleship, the Georgia. And in a lot of respects, Georgia is pretty similar to Massachusetts, despite a few key areas. As I recently did a video talking about the Massachusetts with the upgrade build and then also the commander build. As of updates 0.10.0, we know things have changed with the commander rework. And today we're going to be talking about the Georgia. So there are going to be some things that I reference with Massachusetts, maybe not go as in depth in on this video because the Massachusetts one I went pretty in depth on. But there are some differences and recommendations that I'd make to you when we're talking about the Georgia. So, like the Massachusetts, we need to discuss what type of ship are we dealing with. We are dealing with the Georgia. We're dealing with a battleship, and the Georgia is a brawling battleship. She's not a sniper battleship per se. You're not going to find her in the back, maybe like a Musashi or something of that nature. But that she is, she likes to brawl. She likes to get in pretty close with these bigger guns. As you can see, they have. Touting the 457 millimeters. We have two turrets in the front and one in the back, and a similar-ish secondary setup like you found in Massachusetts, except the Georgia superstructure is a lot larger than the Massachusetts superstructure, because on Massachusetts, it's all these secondary turrets are basically like all grouped in, and then it ends like here with a superstructure. But on the Georgia, things are more stretched out, and so the superstructure is a really nice target, especially for HE spammers. So let's go and talk about the upgrades. So we're going to find a lot of the same things here as in our Massachusetts video. As your modules, there's no upgrades to be done. So for our first upgrades, and again, know that all of this is my opinion. You can disagree. But this is what I'd like to do. So first off, you have the upgrade slot 1, where you have main armaments modification 1 and auxiliary armaments modification 1. When it comes to Georgia and Massachusetts, instead of going with main armaments modification 1, like I do with most of my other U.S. Navy battleships, I opt to go for the auxiliary armaments modification 1 because it increases the survivability of the secondary battery and also your AA mounts. Because she's a brawling battleship, you're often going to find yourself dealing more up close and personal, and so you want your secondary battery to survive, to engage the enemy, as well as you're going to find yourself with CV matches of dealing with enemy planes. Because one of the things is, if we look at see the armor layout, I mean, you can see that the main guns are 241, 305, 184, 540 right on the front, then 439 underneath the front. So the turrets are pretty beefy. It takes a lot to knock these out. You have to have pretty large guns to knock out, so that's just another reason of why I don't feel the need to take main armaments modification 1. Second slot, you can take damage control system modification 1. I believe there's also an additional slot if you wanted to have a third option. Let me show you that real quick. I like to give you guys in-depth information and how I might build my Georgia a little differently. Is if we go and look at upgrades, there is a engine boost modification 1. The upgrade is available in slot 2 on tier 3 through tier 10 ships equipped with the engine boost consumable. So the action time of the consumable is plus 30%, and with coupon you can get it for 12,750. Basically, what this means is the engine boost that's very notorious for the Georgia, making you break 40 knots with Sierra Mike speed flag, is that you can, instead of taking damage control system modification 1, you can take that engine boost modification, and so then you're going to get 20% more speed or 20% lengthened of action time with your engine boost, as right now it would be action time of consumable 180 seconds, and then do the math off of that, which I'll just try to add that calculation here below. But yeah, so you could go with that. For now, I just do the damage control system modification 1, The risk of catching fire is reduced by -5%, and risk of flooding is -3%. So you could make a case for the engine boost modification if you feel so inclined to. For the third slot, naturally, because she's Brawling Battleship, you want to boost the secondary battery modification. So then that increases our secondary battery firing range by +20%, and the maximum dispersion of our secondary battery is reduced by a further -20%. If you are going with a brawling build on Georgia, at the same time, if you don't really feel like brawling in Georgia, you could just redo a few things, have like artillery plotting room modification 1 to increase your main battery firing range if you want to fight more outranges Georgia, which is up to you, but I like to brawl with her. To me, she strikes me more that way. Or you could take the main battery for modification 2, which increases your main battery traverse speed, but I have a case to make why not to take that, but take this one instead. In slot 4, I take damage control system modification 2. It accelerates the fire extinguishing and recovering from flooding. Fire extinguishing time, -15%, flooding recovery time, -15%. So naturally, of course, these two synergize well. And with the amount of HE spamming and more torpedoes, this works well. For slot 5, we're going to take the concealment system modification 1, which reduces the detectability range by sea and air by -10%. Also, the squadron detectability range and the dispersion of shells fired by enemies attacking your ship is increased by 5%. So that's quite nice. And we have the camouflage that comes with Georgia. So right now in total, we're rocking a 14.8 kilometer detectability range. So yes. Now, let's go to slot 6. So there's 2 cases to be made here. You have, well, you could go with 3. So you have the main battery modification 3. What this does is that it increases the reload time of your main guns by -12%. So right now, our reload time is, where'd it go? I am bland. There it is. It's the first one. I thought it was lower. 22.9 seconds. So if you do not take this, then it's closer to 26. I think it's 26 seconds is your reload time. But to get a 22.9 seconds reload time is quite nice, and I'm going to talk a bit more about that as well here in just a minute. At the same time, you could go with artillery plotting room modification 2. Which is the maximum dispersion of your main battery shells is -11%, so you get tighter groups. And I guess I meant to come back to on this one is that you get a nerf with your main battery traverse speed, where it's -13%. So you pay for this for having a faster reload by your turrets traversing slower. But I have a case to be made on this, why to maybe take this one over the other 2 options. But again, it's up to you. So you can get a maximum dispersion of main battery shells is reduced by -11%, or you could take auxiliary armaments modification 2, where it improves the efficiency of the secondary battery into AA amounts. So your secondary battery reload time is reduced by -20%. Your continuous AA damage is improved by 15%, and so our secondary battery reload time right now is 4 seconds, but naturally that would improve once we do some things with the commander. And our AA continuous damage is 384. So you can do the math and see how that is going to increase, as well as damage from AA shell explosions is increased. And so this is really an AA buff per se, but it definitely increases that reload time of what you'd have for your secondary battery. For myself, I just like to be able to fire my main guns on the Georgia, that's 457 millimeters, because they do a lot of damage when they hit. Talking about the consumables, you get that 40-second reload time on your heal with that action time of the consumable 28 seconds with no flags or signals being taken. You get the option between spotting aircraft and fighter. So this is up to you because your artillery range right now is 20 kilometers. But I might find myself taking this more with the new meta we have, but if I'm going in ranked or clan battles, I'm probably going to be taking fighter, just as a deterrent, because I started playing ranked the other night and there's a lot of CVs, especially with Bronze League being both tier 8 and tier 9. I came across 3 of my 4 matches were with carriers, so I'd probably take fighter instead. And then you get the glorious engine boost, so the maximum speed of your ship is increased. So 33 knots, and you activate that, add 15%. You get even closer to that 40, and then you take your Sierra mic, am I seeing that one? Yeah, plus 5%. So then you're getting even faster. So that synergizes really nice and getting you breaking that 40 knot speed. So let's go ahead and start talking about the commander. Now, I didn't redistribute him to get the free redistributions, had to pay doubloons. But what I've been doing right now is I've actually been using my Massachusetts commander on the Georgia, so I can get my Massachusetts commander up to 21 points quicker. Because ultimately the build's going to be the same, but there's a difference when we're talking the commander. So you can see we have George Doe, we have the star, and we have an enhanced skill here, where on the Massachusetts, I have just the commander that came with Massachusetts, so don't have the enhanced skill here. But with George Doe, and then there's another one you can get, which was I have him on my Iowa or Montana. George Doe and John Doe, yeah. So it has these same enhanced skills. And you can get those, I'll just show you right now if you don't know about this. Be in depth, make sure to talk about all things to help you guys out, and ladies. When you go into Armory, you can purchase commanders, and if you scroll down, somewhere in this region, you'll find both of them. For example, I think George Doe is for the 1,500 doubloons, and then the John Doe is for 35,000 coal. So it's really good to get because of the skills they give you, these 2 enhanced skills namely, and they come as a 10-point commander. But what this does is that for Gunfeeder, instead of without a special commander, the time taken to switch between shell type is negative 50%. But with this guy, it's negative 75%. So this would actually even work really well on Massachusetts as an example. So this would be where I designate my first point on the Georgia, as I'll highlight the build I would take first, and then we'll talk about some of the other skills. And then I keep talking about the turret traverse time, okay? So you get the main battery traverse speed is plus 25%. On a standard commander, I believe it's 20%. Yeah, so it's 20%. So in having, let's pull up the turret traverse. So our turret traverse 180-degree turn time is 51.7 seconds. So if we added a regular commander, and we used enhanced skill, it would go to 43.1 seconds. So I'll make sure that's right when I pull that up here in a second. 180-degree turn time, 51, yeah. So, but we add the grease the gears on with enhanced. Instead of it being 43.1 seconds, it drops down to 41.4 seconds. So it's kind of nice in regards to the nerf, per se, you get with taking the main battery modification 3. Kind of helps make up for that. That nerf to the negative 13% to your turret traverse. And of course, we also talked about if you want to take this skill, you could as well. So you have really fast turning guns. But I like this setup, so I want to work with that. But I can take a special commander to get an extra plus 5% enhancement on the main battery traverse speed. So for skills, for first 3 points, I would go this way. When you're looking at the Gunfeeder, with the time taken to switch between shell type, when you're dealing with a 22.9 second reload, standard would be you shave 11.45 seconds off. So then it's 50%, so it's 11.45 seconds time for the shells there. But if you take this guy with the negative, or sorry, if you take this skill on this commander, George Joe or John Doe, whatever you decide, it's the negative 75%. So now that means that my shell change time has dropped from 11.45 seconds to 5.72 seconds, if I did the math right on that. Which, because that shaves off 17.18 seconds. And then you deduct 17.18 from 22.9 seconds. You're getting roughly 5.72 second time taken to switch between shell types, which is quite nice. Again, this would be really nice for Massachusetts. It's not going to be it'd be 7.5 seconds on Massachusetts because of the 30-second gun reload you find on Massachusetts. And we don't get the slot 6 main battery modification that we do in Massachusetts because she's tier 8, where you find that on the tier 9s and up. So then with a 6-point commander, you could go one of two ways. You could go for the long-range secondary battery shells. So now that's increased by 20%, and now we're up to 10.8 seconds. And naturally, if we jump back into here and we take the Mike Yankee Soccer 6, if you phrase that, is that our secondary battery firing range is improved by plus 5%, the reload time is improved by negative 5%, and the maximum dispersion of the secondary battery shells is also reduced by negative 5%. So naturally, we're going to want to take that, run those two together, so then that our secondary armament is reached out to that glorious 11.3 kilometer range for our secondaries. At the same time, you could instead opt for Adrenaline Rush, which means that the reload time on your main battery and your secondary battery reload time is going to be reduced. Enhances the ship's parameters for each 1% of HP lost. But then that means your secondary battery for a 6-point build is going to be 9.4 with the flag. So personally, I would rather take the long-range secondary battery shells first in this instance. Because I love my secondaries, I want to reach out to that 11.3 kilometer range with a 6-point commander. Next, you have some different options. I will tell you what I recommend. I would go for the fire prevention first because of, well, two things, as the skill shows. The risk of catching fire in general is reduced by negative 10%. Great. And the maximum number of fires is reduced by negative 1. And what this skill does is when we look at Georgia, so you're like, well, maybe you're like, well, I never get 4 fires on me. I only ever get 3 fires on me. And rarely would I ever get 4 fires, so why would I even bother taking fire prevention? Well, some players already know this, other players do not. But when we're looking at battleships here, you get fires on 4 different places of your ship. You get one on the bow, you'll get one up here in the superstructure, or maybe it's here, and then you get another one on the superstructure. This superstructure is just so big and long on Georgia. And then you get one on the stern. Right, so 4 fires, 1, 2, 3, and 4. When you take fire prevention, it reduces it to 3 fires, but it's the location that's important where it reduces it to 3 fires. So you still get 1 fire on your bow and stern, but you only get 1 fire on your superstructure. And that's pretty important, especially when it comes to Georgia, because her superstructure is so large, right? You're going to have, Kitakazes, other HE spamming destroyers. We're just going to be throwing HE all day long, not to mention Smolensk and other cruisers, Colbert, at your superstructure. And it's pretty dang hard to miss your superstructure. So if you can reduce that, the damage intake you're going to have by only having 1 fire on your superstructure, then I would make the case that with a 10-point commander, you should go with fire prevention first. So this is what I would do with 10 points. And then after that, Let's see if I get this correct, because I do it pretty similar. It's the same build I have on Massachusetts, except Massachusetts is not a 21-point commander yet. So we only have 10 points on this guy. Ideally, of course, I want to get him 21 seconds, so I get these perks with the gun feeder and the grease the gears. But next, what I would recommend taking, and I really want to make sure that I get this correct so I don't mess this up when it comes to the commanders. Yes. So with 10 points, you have this, or you can do Adrenaline Rush if you don't want to take the long-range secondary battery shells, but I want to do that. So here's 10 points. For my next, for a 13-point build commander, I'm going to go with Adrenaline Rush next because, well, I'll get to that in a minute. I'll talk more about this skill. Then after that, I'm going to be focusing more down here. So next, what I'm going to be looking at is the Emergency Repair Expert, because the action time of the damage control party is increased plus 10%. You get another damage control party consumable, which that actually doesn't, the +1 charge, I think that applies to the Russian battleships, not the US battleships. But the repair party of consumable time is increased by plus 10%. And then the number of repair party consumables charges, it gives you +1. So instead of having 4, you get 5. And so that works really well and synergizes with being a brawling battleship and the reload time being so short. So we would do that. So 7. So then that means we're at a 17-point commander and we only have 4 points left. As I discussed with Massachusetts, and again here with Georgia, there's one of 2 ways you can go with your last 4 points. You could go with close quarters combat, which your secondary battery reload time instantly a buff, minus 10%. And so now, 3, it'd be, take that, so we were at 3.8, and now we're at 3.4. So that's really nice. But then you also get the situational skill that can be activated, is that increases the reload time speed of the main battery after an enemy ship has been spotted within the firing range of your ship's secondary battery, which is why I like to take this skill. By your main battery reload time by negative 10%. So now your main battery, instead of being at 22.9 seconds reload time, it drops down to 20 point something seconds because it's going to take 2.29 seconds off. So then you're looking at 20 points, like 5-6 seconds, 6 seconds, 20.6 seconds, roughly like that. And then you throw in Adrenaline Rush. Then if you've already taken some damage, you're basically already instantly looking at a solid 20-second reload time. Fantastic, good stuff. And then as you take more damage, you get even lower. Then you could be looking at something of a 19.5 second reload. Something like that. It just depends on how much damage you're taking. Because of how Adrenaline Rush enhances a ship's parameter for each 1% of ship lost, and that's negative 0.2% reload time. So with the main battery buffing the reload time and also the secondary battery reload time, you can be shaving both of these reload times down pretty quickly. So that's what a 21-point commander build looks like. This will be the 21-point build that I do go for with this commander, especially for Georgia, with having that enhanced skill of the gun feeder and the turret traverse, because especially with the large 457mm guns, you want to get that 180-degree turn time down as much as you can, but also still holding the secondary build going on that I've discussed with the upgrades. But of course, you can take a different 6-slot modification where you're not losing at negative 13% on the main battery traverse, which is up to you. So this would be my 21-point build. Also at the same time, if you are all about the secondary life, you can take the improved secondary battery aiming, which the maximum dispersion of your secondary battery shells fired at priority target, so a ship that you select with control left click, is reduced by negative 35%. And now how this skill has changed, which I meant to mention this with the Massachusetts, is that secondaries fire from both sides of your ship. Which I really miss the manual secondaries in the sense that they give you a negative 60% buff. So for me, when you put these two skills up side by side, the close quarters combat just wins it for me, because that means I'm getting a 20-second reload time on my main battery when I'm in range of other ships, enemy ships within that 11.3 kilometer range with my secondary batteries. So that's me. Inarguably, you can take this if you're about that life. I'm kind of hoping inside that they buff the U.S. Secondary battery accuracy, or secondary battleships accuracy, since they did that to the Germans before the rework hit. But we'll see. So that's what I would take. Now, we can go into the time of, well, why don't you take the other skills? Or there's different options you could do. So let's talk about different options. So let's say, like myself, previously with the 19-point build, I could do the priority target, right? Because priority target used to be 1-point build, and then emergency repair expert used to be called superintendent, but they broke this skill apart. Well, when it was 3-point skill, but then they broke this skill apart because this would also give you additional engine boost. It'd also give you additional spotter or fighter plane. But now they've broken it off into something else, or maybe they don't even have it now as an option altogether. Because it's different now since you have different skills for your different types of ships. So let's say that you are gung-ho about wanting priority target. There was realistically one way to do that. Is I would say don't take adrenaline rush, and then you take priority target, and you still have that. And then you have 1 point left, which, I mean, you don't need to take incoming fire alert. I would argue taking preventive maintenance, because it reduces the risk of your main batteries, main turrets, and your engine or steering gears becoming incapacitated by negative 30%. At the same time, you could take the emergency repair specialist, which reduces the reload time of your damage control party consumable and your repair party consumable reload time by negative 3%. It's only like with the repair party consumable, it only takes it drops down to I think 38 seconds instead of 40 seconds. And then for the damage control party, it takes I think it's 3 or 4 seconds off. So it's not an insane difference, but if you don't really find your main turrets being knocked out very often, then you could do that, for example, or this with a 21-point build if you really, really want priority target and you're willing to go without adrenaline rush. There's another way you could do it where you could go without grease the gears and take priority target, but with Georgia, her main battery and 180-degree turn time, 51.7 seconds, without taking grease the gears. No, you want grease the gears. You want to improve that main battery traverse speed. So really there's only one way to go about it if you don't want, if you really want priority target, and as is, just go without adrenaline rush. I know some other players that do this, so you could do that or that. But in my mind, I really like adrenaline rush to get that DPM down a little bit. So that's just me, personal opinion here. Let's see, why don't we take some of the other skills? Let's talk about that. Okay, so let's just undo that so we can actually see. Power Technician, you're not a HE spamming battleship. Don't take it. Consumable Specialist, this would only enhance one thing out of the 5 options listed here, because if you have fighter consumable reload or you're spotting aircraft consumable, and you can only choose to take one of those two. Unfortunately, don't have. I thought they would have had engine boost reload here time, but they don't. So you're not getting your main money for your buck out of 1 point. We talked about these two. We talked about, if you're going to take incoming fire alert, you're just better off with priority target. But at the same time, it's up to you if you want to do something like that. You could, but really, if you have priority target on, it helps you already be aware of there might be a ship taking a target at you. IFHE, armor penetration capabilities of the main battery HE shells, plus 25%, and the same for the secondary battery. It is a 2-point skill. If you're, I still would, to me, it's not worth it. There's other points that I could better spend on versus taking IFHE. Really, this is for, what makes the big difference is 6-inch guns, sorry. Where the secondary armament, I believe, on your Massachusetts and the Georgia is 127 millimeters, so you really don't get a much bang out of your buck because you're not crossing any major thresholds. Or like with American cruisers, with 6-inch guns like Worcester, you're definitely getting your money's worth there. Consumable enhancements. This will increase the action time only of your engine boost action time by plus 10%. So you're only getting 1 out of 4 here. In my mind, that's not worth it. Vigilance, as long as you're aware that there's destroyers around you, you have map awareness, and know how to position yourself in relation to those destroyers, you don't really need this. We've talked about priority targets. AA Gunner, you can continue. If you want to make an AA build out of Georgia, it is possible to do that, especially with that 6 slot, how we were talking about how it improved the continuous damage and then damage from flak. You could make an AA build more out of if you have a different commander and just special commander and just want to do it for funs and giggles, you can. But that's if you have a CV in a match where you're always going to have ships in the match. So this in my mind is still better to go. Super heavy AP shells. This skill is stupid in the sense of the 2 nerfs it gives you. So the damage of your main battery AP shells is plus 5%, which is nice. But the fire extinguishing time at this point, as of update 0.10.1, is increased by 30% for your flooding and your fire extinguishing recovery time. No, that's just terrible. Do not take this, right? We talked about these guys. You have basics of survivability. You could go without Adrenaline Rush's example and take basic survivabilities. If you want your module restoration time increased by negative 15%, fire extinguishing time and flooding recovery time further reduced by negative 15%. So you're increasing your survivability, your defense skill a bit more. If you are about that life, for myself, I kind of like to invest a little bit more into attack because we have both the fire prevention expert and we have the emergency repair kit kind of helping us out with that defense and survivability. Enhanced anti-torpedo protection, not really. I guess a case could be made since you're brawling battleship, you're moving up more so than other battleships since you're a brawler, but I'd rather spend those skills elsewhere. We've kind of talked about you could do an AA build with a different type of commander if you wanted to. Then you have the infamous Deadeye, where it can be activated if there are no visible enemy ships within your ship's standard detectability range. So standard detectability range of 14.8, where your maximum dispersion of your main battery shells is reduced by negative 10%. So you could do that and not take close quarters combat, but I'd hate to try to make Georgia and turn her into a sniping battleship. She's got more accurate guns than Massachusetts, as an example. She has fewer of them, so when Georgia misses, it hurts, but when she does hit, usually get your money's worth. So You could do that, but for me, I would rather invest in brawling capabilities, especially with ranked. This skill would really bring Georgia more so into the limelight, getting your reload down to 20 seconds. We've talked about that skill. I don't take Concealment Expert with my secondary build Battleships. If you did take this, you're down to a 13.3 kilometer detectability range by air, and then 9.2 or 13.3 by sea, 9.2 by air. I don't take Concealment Expert because Georgia is a brawling battleship. Ideally, you want to be within that secondary maximum battery range of 11.3. So, if you're going to be brawling all the time, Concealment Experts, it's worthless, right? If you want enemy ships within your secondary battery range, I would recommend not taking Concealment Expert. The case where this stands differently in comparison to Massachusetts is, if you want to get out of fire, you want to go dark, then yeah, that's where kind of Concealment Expert comes in if you find yourself being overrun. But because you have engine boost with Georgia and you bust over like 40 knots, you can get out of harm's way relatively quick if you've got your engine boost going. So for me, it's just not worth taking the 4 points. Use it on a battleship that's not a brawler. And then you have this. So for the 10-point build, I will be doing this for my first 10 points. And I'll go ahead and master that now. And then eventually, when I get this guy up to 21 points, you'll have that highlighted build that we just discussed. So I'm trying to keep this video not longer than need be. I hope you guys appreciated the video and talking about the Georgia with how things have changed with the commander rework that we found ourselves in of 0.10.0. And yeah, so that would be my recommendations. Let me know what you plan to take or what you do take, or if you have questions regarding Georgia or something I didn't cover with the upgrade in the commander build. So if you liked today's video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. Subscribe if you want to see more. And if you have already subscribed, thanks so much. Just really appreciate as we continue to grow the YouTube channel here with you, with myself, Flimsy Lunch Tray. So until next time, take care.